see how this is going here. People of the so-called world. Let's make sure that this is all the way up to the gain settings that we want. 9 decibels, everything looking quite nominal here. You know, you guys, it's amazing the level of increased self-confidence I have when I actually make notes for an episode to follow. I just am much more capable of jumping right into something and figuring out where I'm going to go. Hopefully I remembered everything. I think I didn't. But we can always do supplemental, like we can do like a war story segment or something if anyone ever wants to know. But that's not really the purpose of my show. The purpose of my show is to tell my story, reveal the trajectory of my spiritual growth, and to talk about what I learned. And so, let's see here. Wow, that's a lot of notes, actually. Where we left off at the end of episode 2 was that I pretty much gambled my entire income and lifestyle on internet-ordered drugs. Well, to give you a little recap, at the end of episode 2, my friend Mowdy had gone to jail right around April 22nd or so, right after I quit my job. And while she was gone, lots happened. Well, you may remember that I had mentioned another associate of mine named Ella, and she had a friend named Katie, and basically Katie lived in this house. We called it 50 because the address was 50. In fact, the address was 50 Allenwood Lane, Aliso Viejo, California, 92656. And so now she no longer lives there, so anyone who's there is just completely unaffiliated with my life story, and I want to clarify that. But basically, 50 would become very integral to this story, and it happened really fast, too. We started going over there, and at one point, her roommates and landlord, basically, her roommates were her landlord, went out of town. They were gone for like 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, things went crazy. So, you may remember that some of my early life, what is that? Some of my early life story was, or my early drug story was the manufacture of methamphetamine. And, Katie was taking chemistry classes at Saddleback College. And, of course, my antennas, like that guy on Joe Rogan said, my antennas went up. I said, well, that's really cool. Can you get me some stuff? And I don't know exactly how I was able to sort of, twist and pull the strings of everybody around me at this time. I think that there was just some spiritual element to this where, like, I was gaining a lot of basically material power from my activities. Material power is really funny because there's all these kids and all these people that are trying to become like, rich kingpins. And what they don't realize is that material power is completely disconnected from power in real life, in real meaningful way. And so, although I had all of these drug-addicted 19-year-olds at my beck and call for every move, I just became more unstable and more, basically psychotic and more, broken, as this went on. And I had, all material power was increasing. I was able to, get people to do whatever I wanted them to do, essentially, at that time. And yet, I just descended further and further spiritually. I told her that I needed some reagents. I needed basically anything she could steal from the school. She had a lab day. They were doing something, I'm not sure what it was, but she had access to lab-grade sodium hydroxide, lab-grade hydrochloric acid, and ultimately stole those things from the chemistry room at the school. Well, you remember in Breaking Bad when Walter White steals all the chemical stuff from his school, and there's, like, at first no one notices, but then they notice, and there's, like, all this investigation into these stolen chemicals, and that was very similar to what happened to me, except that happened, like, right away. She took the HCl and the NaOH from the school, and basically the very next day, the Saddleback Chemistry Department was investigating this theft. It's been over 8 years since then, so kind of makes you wonder what... Now they have their answer, but they never caught us. That was a recurring theme for me in my early days, is I could just do things and get away with them. And I think that it was only because that was to pull me deeper and deeper into this, and to tempt me further and further. Well, we were going to 50 all the time for this 2-week period, and I basically was setting up this, like, clandestine drug lab on her dining room table. I think we even left some, like, weird chemical stains on the table that the roommates noticed when they came back later. But by that time, it didn't matter to me anymore because everything had been removed from there, and I could basically blow up a house, and no one would, know what to do, because by the time that anyone realized what had happened, I was gone. And we were having these little parties there, with not like a bunch of random people, but just our little crew of criminals. And we were drinking and smoking meth and doing all these things. And at this time, there was a very popular darknet market called Alpha. This is making my life so much easier with these notes. I needed to do this all the time. Anyway, there was this darknet market called Alpha Bay. Alpha Bay actually would turn out to be where I really got my combat experience, you could say. I had a vendor account there as time went on. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Alpha Bay was really, really well done, actually. It had a great GUI. It was modeled after, I think, like Amazon or so. There was another website, like something really popular that has like a really nice graphical user interface, and I can't remember what the site is. It might be Amazon, it might be something like that, but Alpha Bay was modeled after that. Maybe it was the Silk. I don't know what Alpha Bay was modeled after. I can't remember. But Alpha Bay was a really, really nice website with a great GUI. It was the best darknet market I'd ever seen. And we got Katie's laptop. Ooh, I need to put that part. Let's see here. Let's do the... Oh my god, well, I'm forgetting. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So... we had this computer, this laptop, and by this time I had really figured out how I was doing my thing. Use Alpha Bay, importing things, doing the Bitcoin, doing all this. I learned how to tumble and launder Bitcoin, things like that. I learned how to really build a hybridized operation between the darknet markets and the real life, and one of those things, like when you build a system for something, it just becomes more and more refined as you go on. But I was learning really fast. I think because I was just so moto about everything, disgustingly so, really, that obsessed with my operation and the way that it was running, and so it made it really easy to keep things going along. Like, in fact, the main obstacle that I had towards my smooth sailing operation was the emotions and the behaviors of the people around me, because a lot of the people around me saw what an ambitious dirtbag I was becoming, and they were really uncomfortable about that. But we had this laptop, and we were using basically 50 as a headquarters operation, where we were getting Bitcoin and sending illegal properties to or illegal materials to that house, my house, a UPS store drop box, and then another friend that I had over on Nueva Vista in Laguna Niguel. We'll talk about him shortly, because he's going to become very, very critical here. So as you know, and as you can see, I was very, very much dedicated to this way of life that I was building. And as I mentioned yesterday, it became necessity because I no longer had any other source of income. I no longer really had anything going in my life except for crime and my friends and my associates. So we're having these little get-togethers and everything, sending Bitcoin there, buying Bitcoin there, sending drugs there, sending, even fake IDs were sent there. Particularly Katie's fake ID was sent there. And this one night, we were there, and I really had like a, thing for her. We went into the backyard. We were sitting there. I was so high, you guys. I can never forget this power of this moment. We were sitting in this backyard, and she told me, I know that you want to be a drug kingpin. I know you want to be, the main cheese here. But you don't know. You don't want that. You don't want that way of life. I looked at her and I told her, it's too late now. Like, nothing stops this train but arrest or death. And I meant that. Katie had gone to a friend's house where she was drinking heavily a few nights after this, and I was in my house, and I contacted her, but I've said, hey, are you home, whatever. She goes, no, I'm over here at this house party, but I'm really drunk and I can't drive home. I won't be home for like another several hours. Well, what am I going to do? She said, well, you could just go into my house and do your thing there. And she said, if it's unlocked, you can just go in. I went over to the house. Front door was locked. Went over to the backyard. That was locked too. Sliding glass door was locked. So I sat in the backyard for a little bit, told her, hey, your house is all locked up. And she said, well, if you can get in, just go in, if there's a way, I looked around the backyard, and I found a gardening spade that you get. Jammed it under the track of that sliding glass door, and then lifted up, and like that. Got in. Everything's cool. I even took a video of me doing a hot rail. I'm not sure if I have let's see if I have it. Here's somewhere. White light, white heat. Do I have it? Probably not. At least not right away. And I could pull it up. This is K-Pack Pioneers pictures. I don't know if I have it right now. I know where it is. I know how to get to it, but I just don't really know how to download it yet. I don't think. Oh, you know what I can do? I can do a window capture, I think. Let's go over to Facebook. See if I can pull this thing here. I think I may have gone to Gauge or something. I like to give you guys the old photo receipts and everything, just because it really helps add some color to this show. Not because I'm trying to prove anything. I don't need to do that, but I do want to. I do want to show you guys some little extra color here if I can. Open a Messenger, Media. Let's go back a long way here. Let's go 2017. Here we go, I got it. Alright, so this video was... This video was taken that same day that I gained access to Katie's house. Let's do this. Window capture. And I don't want to... I mean, I'm not glorifying you guys or anything like that. I really am not. But I just want to give you guys some little perspective on these things. Show you guys what the media that exists from this period of time.
3, 2, 1.
Oops. Well, I sent her this video on Snapchat to show her that I had, gotten in. Whoops. And little did I know that this would become a very controversial moment. I was hanging out. Remember, I mentioned in episode 2 that I had a very, very street credible individual that I was hanging out with, and you guys remember from episode 1, of course, Josh, and how he's one of my original associates, and we were all hanging out at that one guy's house, and I don't know where we were going. We were just going somewhere. We got in his truck, and we pulled out of Abbeywood Lane, and we saw loads of police officers at the corner of Morning Ridge and Creekside. Just tons of cars, everything going on, lights and everything. So, what the fuck is that? Well, make sure you put a seatbelt on, And, right after that, Katie goes missing for 72 hours. And we didn't know where she had been, but she got out a couple days later, or she logged back into her Facebook or whatever she did a couple days later, and she goes, "Hey, I just got arrested." I was like, "What the fuck? For what?" She says, "Importing a fraudulent ID through the mail and selling MDMA and meth." So what the fuck? She shows me a receipt for, or like a carbon copy for like her computer had been seized, and she'd gotten all these crazy health and safety code charges like for dealing drugs. And they said, okay, well, like we need a clean house. And okay, so the next day, hanging out with our friends, I said, "Hey, do you guys know that she got like arrested for dealing drugs, basically?" She goes, No, it was a DUI. I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, he goes, "Oh yeah, she got a DUI." And right at that moment, I knew she'd been compromised. I don't know to this day by who and what exactly happened when she was brought into custody or whatever, but at that point, I was a paranoid person, and I thought that the feds were crawling all around my operation. I don't know. To this day, I don't know how true and how the extent of that, but I do know that there was, basically circumstantial indicators that she had been flipped by the government, or at least by state police, but I think the government was involved, even to this day, I think. And so I told her, well, here's what we need to wipe that laptop. She got it returned to her from the police. It had been taken into evidence and got it back within 48 hours, like right away, got this computer back. And I knew, because I had my things seized by the FBI, that it takes them a couple of years to give the computer back. Certainly not in 72 hours. So I told her, we need to encrypt and or wipe that computer's contents. She said, okay, let's do it. So I went to my house and I created a TrueCrypt. This was back before VeraCrypt. VeraCrypt, I think, took over TrueCrypt. I'm not sure if they still, what their situation is now, because I don't do all this shit anymore. But they have VeraCrypt, which used to be TrueCrypt. I went home, I created in it. It's like you have to make a disk, to do a whole disk encryption on your computer. You have to burn this weird backup. I think it's so that in case something goes wrong during the encryption, you have a backup of the system. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but you do have to make basically a backup disk when you do a disk encryption. So I got home and I made this backup drive or backup disk or whatever. Came back outside and all of a sudden she got really, really reluctant to allow me to encrypt her computer. And I was like, hey, we have to do this. Because there's evidence on this computer. Oh yeah, man, I don't know. No. And I went in there probably a day or two later and just just wiped that computer, just debanned it. And that was the end of that laptop. Well, Ella and I were starting to book these hotel rooms and going in there and just doing drugs and things like that. And pretty much Katie had called her and said, hey, he broke into my house. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You told me to go into your house. She said, no, he snuck into my house. I was like, no, the fuck I didn't. I have the chat logs to prove it. And she called us in the stairwell of the Hotel Irvine in Irvine, California, and told us, this story. But Ellen knew the truth, and I said, look, you're fired, dude. You're either working for, you're just causing problems. I knew that for sure. Whether it was a law enforcement operation or whatever it was causing problems. So you're fired. You're not in this operation anymore. Her response was to go around telling everybody I worked with I broke into her house. So we came back from the hotel. And Doobie Snacks, McKelvie, who is my most trusted associate, called me and he's like, hey man, what the fuck is going on, dude? You broke into a house? I was like, no, I didn't break into a house. She told me to come in there. He said, this is too much for me. There's serious crime involved. It's very dangerous. People are probably getting arrested secretly. We knew Katie had been arrested, but we suspected that she'd flipped for at least state police, but probably the federal government. Because remember, anytime you're importing these drugs across state lines, this is a federal crime. This is very serious stuff. A lot of people, I'm paranoid, the cops are watching me. If you're importing thousands of Xanax bars from the internet across state lines, and importing, fake IDs and counterfeit money, and it's very serious shit. You can go to prison for a long time, That's why I couldn't tell this story until 2023 basically. 5 years. No, 2022. But it was getting to be too much for Dubes. And I get it. He was such a good kid. He was such a nice, mild-mannered, just such a cool fucking kid, man. And he saw everything getting really crazy and he's like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore. But to this day I just have this bond with he's my fucking buddy, man. He was such a cool kid. Died way too young. And I didn't blame him. I got it. I understood. I was on a track where I was either just going to go to prison basically at that point, or I was either going to be arrested or I was going to get killed from somebody somehow. I knew it. I was okay with it at that time. I had accepted it, given my life for this cause. And I didn't expect anybody else to do something like that, especially not Doobie Snacks. He was just out of his league. this isn't what he wanted, I don't think. I think he just wanted to make some money selling Xanax. I don't think he wanted to give his life for this drug operation. So he quit on me. And at this point, I was kind of in this this limbo period, running around by myself and everything. But I was going over to my friend Gage's house, and Gage, such a funny character, because he was such a tweaker and just like this kind of thing, you know. Really nice, awesome guy, smart as fuck, but really addicted to drugs. And I'd go over to his house, and somehow, some way, and to this day I joke about it. So this is just a funny aspect of Gage, is that he would always have like the best drug dealers in the world come to his fucking house. These were people who had, you know, great price, just great operation. They were always early to their deals. There was everything like this, you know. And one of those people was a very shady, shadowy man. We called him Drama because his real name was Jahmalik, or Jama. And I had gone to Gage's house. We're sitting in the backyard, and his backyard connected to his room. And we're all sitting in the backyard, like hanging out. I think even, Doobie Snacks was there. Doobie remembers this guy. Well, not anymore, but Doobie had remembered this event. We talked about it. In the next, behind the sliding door, in the next room, there was one character who just didn't come outside. He was sitting in the corner smoking his meth or whatever. And I went over there to buy drugs from Gage and from his friend who was in this room, Jama. And I went in there. I was like, okay, let me go talk to this guy. And pretty much the very first things we said to each other is I said, hey man, like, I was a meth manufacturer, or had been making meth periodically here and there. And he said, you really shouldn't just tell people that, like, right when you first meet them. It's like, yeah, I know, but you're selling meth to me, so, like, you're a criminal. So it didn't bother me. And he goes, you want to hear about how I was in jail for 15 million years? It's like, what the fuck? Yes. He said he'd used something called a stash pocket. Let me see if I have some jeans here to show you guys. I don't think I do. Basically, stash pocket, and I used this technique for the rest of my drug use career, is inside a pair of jeans, you have like the zipper flap, comes behind the zipper right here, and you cut a slit at the top of it. You could stuff up to like 7 grams or more into this little pocket. He said, well, I snuck like a half ounce into the Orange County jail that way. I don't remember his charges or what it was, He said, I tried to kill myself in this jail cell by eating an 8-ball, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's 3.5 grams. But it didn't kill him. What actually happened was he went on a rampage in the jail and tried to basically resist and try to, fight with the police. So they shot him in the chest with a taser. And of course now, now completely, immobilized. They dragged him into, when you go to jail, they have like what they call the loop at the Orange County. I don't know if it's on other jails too, I'm not sure. You go into this room where you go from window to window, and they kind of read you your charges, your bail, all these things. And they figure out where you're going to be housed and stuff like that. He got in there, and he said, he got to a window in one of these rooms, and the person wrote the numbers 1500000 000 on the window. And as soon as they did that, he fell into another dimension where he was in this jail for 15 million years. I don't know if this was even a true story as he understood it at the time, or if he was just fucking with me because he was such a funny troll, and he was. But he then, proceeded to spend 15 million years in this jail. And we hit it off right away. I was buying meth from him, smoking with him, everything. And I just really liked the way that he operated. He was very clandestine, very tactical. He had a big Himalayan salt crystal on his dashboard, and he called it the Hippie Patrol. It would light up different colors. And just a really paranoid guy, but also dealing with his paranoia through a tactician's mindset. And I was absolutely, just brought right in. So I called. Let me see where this is here. I think that some of this is a little bit out of timeline. I'm gonna move this. I called Ellen and I was like, hey, like, fuck you guys. Like, I don't want to work with you bunch of degenerate high schoolers anymore. I called them that. They weren't really high schoolers, basically a bunch of losers. I don't want to work with you guys. I'm now working with a new business partner, and we're in the shadows now. It's like some all dramatic bullshit. And Jama was kind of at this fork in the road where he had to decide between life with his girlfriend, whatever she was. I don't know, he called her FedEx, Federal Express, or because he thought she was working for the government or something, and who knows? Because she bought him a boat. She was a social worker when they met. Bought him all these things, like a car, a boat, all this. And he's like, well, that's the feds for sure. I don't know, but he had to decide between selling meth and in his other life. I told him, hey, why don't you come with me and I'll show you how to be a importer and a wholesaler, and you won't have to run around on the street anymore. You can just do what I do. We just sell to other dealers. And he chose that, And that's the thing with personal accountability. When you make a decision like that, it's nobody's fault but your own. Now, it has an influence on him, but he had to make that decision for himself. And he chose that. So we're running all around town, buying Xanax bars off the internet, making meth at the pool bathroom. We started importing counterfeit $20 bills because 100s kept getting seized a couple years back, 2 years. But nobody checks a 20. Try it yourself. Not with counterfeits. Try it yourself with real money. Go give a 20 to a cashier and see if they ever look for a watermark or hit it with a pen. They almost never do, right? Pretty much never do. So I found a vendor. What was his fucking name, man? I don't remember his name anymore, but he had really good bills. They were fucking good. I have a picture of him on here somewhere. Let's see if I can pull him up here. Show you this counterfeit money I was working with. It's a funny picture. Yeah, there's so much media here. Some of these pictures I don't look at or care, but I don't know. I have it on here somewhere. I'm just not sure where. So, do I need to prove that? I don't know. I shall state some facts. Okay, anyway. So, let's put it this way. So we started importing these fake 20s, and things were going really well. Jama was the first time that everything was really smooth for me. We were making money. I don't know what it was, but everything was really clockwork. And I was just getting pulled deeper and deeper into this, and Jama for me was a huge catalyst. I brought in Josh again. I had him open a mailbox in his name at the UPS. So we had multiple mailboxes, drugs coming to all these mailboxes, different houses, different drop houses, everything's going. And I just really liked working with Jamba at that time. So around this time, I always remember the sense of like smoothness at this little show. It must have been only like fucking 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know, because everything happening really fast, you know. But I remember that transitionary period going from the Trans-Europe Express with like Doobie and all these guys into working with Jama, and it was just so seamless. It was just like, whew, everything's good. But spiritually, it was becoming more and more dark, more and more broken. I was walking through, you guys are going to love this because, well, you'll see. I was walking through the neighborhood over there at Alicia and Morning Ridge, essentially. In fact, I was crossing Morning Ridge going from the entrance of Morning Ridge and Allenwood diagonally towards, from this way, Morning Ridge and Allenwood to diagonally towards the corner of Morning Ridge and Creekside, but not quite to the intersection, like to this little island thingy that's like a little circle that's right next to it, like this. Middle of the night. It probably wasn't quite 4 or anything. It was probably like 2 or 3 in the morning. Out of nowhere, I don't remember how he materialized. I must have been looking down or something and not paying attention, because out of nowhere, this guy who looks like a Russian soldier, I'm going to give you the composite sketch right now. I have an identikit and I have a composite sketch of this individual. There are no known photographs of this person at all. I have no anything of this. Let's see, Mr. Chevy. Chevy identikit. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Composite. Okay, Chevrolet identikit. I think it's gonna be this. Let's see. Oh, jeez. Fuck off. Hold on. Close that dialogue. Do this. This is fun stuff right here. I love this concept. I have identikits of these people. This is a really accurate one too, by the way. This looks a lot like him. No, that's not it. Stand by. I'll pull the right one for you. That's one of the first early drafts that I had. This media, and then we'll pull. Here we go. So this is basically like very close to what this is. God damn it, you son of a bitch. Chev ID kit. Chev ID kit 2. Okay. So that's what he looks like. Very similar. Now, of course, it's an identikit. It's a composite sketch, so it's never really going to look exactly like him, you know. Just want to make sure you guys are seeing that on your screens. There we go. So, walking through the neighborhood, and this guy comes walking up to me. Very similar to that, but not exactly. Right? And he goes, "Hey, dude, do you have any shit?" What the fuck? Where'd you come from, you know? And this guy is as fucking this is as criminal as they come right here, this guy. Well, he was a Lithuanian that was in the United States. I don't know why he was here, but he was not a legal citizen here. He was just in Lithuania, lived with his family. He was on bail for some charges from jail, and then as it would come later, he was on. He had an ankle bracelet for immigration and customs enforcement. He had 2 ankle bracelets on, literally one for each leg. I've never seen this before in my fucking life, but he had 2 ankle bracelets on. And I was like, well, what? He, dude, you know, he says, what the fuck? And he's like, yeah, it's nearly And he talked exactly like... you have to really project to get it. Hey, dude, I see you walking around this neighborhood and the middle of the night all the time, so I know you have something. I was like, well, yeah, basically, but, like, I don't know who the fuck you are or where you just came from, so, like, I don't, like, sell drugs like that. I don't, like, go around the street slinging bags. I was selling to other dealers. And I was like, well, let's talk about stuff. So I was hanging out with him. And at this time, he's wearing a red jersey type shirt. It said Chevrolet Motors on it. We're hanging out by the pool. The middle pool, actually, on the side of it, by this little, like, utility closet thing that's right there. And eventually I just realized, like, this guy's cool, man. Like, yeah, I'll get you drugs. And he goes, hey, come back to my house. We can smoke, dude. So he went over there. It's 111 Briarwood, I think. I think it's Briarwood. It's like, anyway, 111 Briarwood or something. I always salute the house when I walk by for years. But we went over there and got to meet him and his girlfriend, Shirin. And we were smoking, meth together and everything. And when I met Chev, well, okay, so he's like, hey, let me give you my number. We could, he's trying to build a connection to open in that. Give my number. We can hang out, talk, and everything. I said, well, what do I save your contact as? Before he could answer, oh, never mind, I know, Chevrolet Motors, because it was on his shirt. It's a fucking weird name. So I was always calling him Chevrolet after that. His real name was Nedius. And I'll show you this, too. This is a news article about him. And there are no photos, but the composite looks a lot like him, guys. It really does. It's amazing how accurate that... God, what a crazy... Is that him? No, that's an empty seat. Okay. Thought we had a known photograph for a second there. A faster encoding preset? What the fuck does that mean? Never seen that before. Window capture. Alright, so this guy... Here's a news article from the Orange County Register about him. A 21-year-old Laguna Niguel man led sheriff's deputies on a pursuit early Saturday morning, at one point ramming one of their cruisers head-on, authorities said. Deputies arrested Nedius Bickus after the car chase on suspicion of stolen property, assault with a deadly weapon, and felony evading. Blah, blah, blah. And so basically this was his get-down. He would steal cars and take them up to Santa Ana, California, and sell them to a fence or a connection that he had, and then he would trade them for drugs or whatever he was doing. I don't know. This guy's a career criminal. Everything he did was just really illegal. And we got along. We were really good friends because this was one of the... Him and Jama were like the two people that I met that were as about things as I was. And Jama was still wrestling with his soul and humanity. I was no longer doing that. I was ready to just be this way. And at this point, we're completely out of control. We're going over to this pool over there on just in the middle of the Morningside Townhomes Association, the big circular tract, and in the middle is a pool, like direct fucking middle. We're going over there. We're getting music equipment, synthesizers, guitars, everything going over there. Just hanging out every day at this pool. Playing music and cooking meth in the bathroom. Duffel bags of chemicals, all this stuff going into the room. Right around this time, Mowdy gets out of jail. And comes back into the realm. And she walked out into a whole other world than the one she had left before when she went to jail. I now knew Jama, who she had known her whole life. I didn't know that they really knew each other. How did you meet him? They had been friends since they were younger. And I told her, like, hey, it worked. Remember that gamble I told you about before you got arrested? It worked. And the chaos of that was just out of control. Who is that? Who is that? What kind of question is that, he asked me? Anyway. So, let's see here. Oh man, this might even have to go in another episode. I'm gonna go urinate, and let's see how that. If I'm ready to tell you guys, because things are just getting really complex here. 1 second. Alright, hopefully my intermission wasn't no good. Things had gotten crazy while she was in there. By the time that she got out, I was running around with a nickel-plated PPK chambered in 380 ACP, a lot of Xanax and a lot of drugs, and it was just completely out of control. And Jama and I had developed in our infinite psychosis a plan to basically exit the business forever. I was always trying to do this, you guys. And that's how I knew that there was still like this little piece of my spirit that was not trying to do what I was materially doing at this point. And the plan was... Oh man, I have it. Oh, you know what? It's like right in front of me. Let me read you guys the plan. I have it right here. Hilarious. That was very fortunate, you guys. Oh my goodness. What's the exit strategy? This is it, huh? Okay. You know, life is funny. Sometimes you write things out, you don't even know why you did it. And then you get to do something like this, and you're like, oh, that's helpful. In escrow, what escrow is basically, people generally know what escrow is, but on the darknet markets it works like this. There's two ways you can buy illegal commodities on the darknet markets, and one of them is called a finalize early, or an FE deal. An FE deal is basically where you just send, well, actually there's three different. One is direct, one is a finalize early, and then one is the traditional escrow style. But finalize early and direct buy are two really similar things that you can do. Basically what that is the vendor gets the money before the drugs have arrived. In escrow, the money is held by the darknet market until you finalize the purchase, which means, okay, it's arrived, hit finalize, and then the money is released from the market to the vendor. And this helps people not get robbed. But at this point, I was trusting of Opiate Connect. Every few weeks, and I remember I mentioned that I would talk about him earlier. So basically, Opiate Connect's Get Down was like every few weeks he would press like 36,000 Xanax bars. And then he would just sell them within a day. They would be gone, because everybody really liked his bars. They were really well done. Really well done. They were almost pharmaceutical quality. It's just ridiculous how good they were. He must have been some kind of a Persian guy or something, because he always said, my friend. So anyway. Oh, okay, my friend. Or that was bullshit. And it worked, because I still think he's a Persian or something. He was from Salt Lake City, Utah, or at least his packages came from Salt Lake City, Utah. I remember that. In escrow on Alpha Bay was about $700. 2 shipments of 200 bars were coming to the house. 1,000 bars was coming to the UPS store. The Nueva Vista drop had 100 or 200 bars, and the Josh Charette drop had 300 bars. So in Xanax, approximately, anyway, phase 1 of our little exit strategy was that with Xanax, we had 1,200, total expected bar quantity was 1,800 bars plus extras. With my distribution, each jar was about $200. And a jar is 100 pills, so let's call that 12 jars. 12 jars, $200 per jar. At 18 jars times 2, okay, I don't care about the money, I'm just breaking down the strategy. The strategy was to have all this Xanax was sent from all these different drop zones. Then we were going to wholesale these off to a couple of dealers, Doobie and Gage. And then phase 2 was to take the profit of that project and invest it again in counterfeit $20 bills at $3 per bill. 1,000 $20 bills. After factoring the losses was another $18,000. With spare... Okay, there's spare money left up, so the idea was to get another 1,000 bars. And then, after those were distributed, the plan was to get about a pound of meth and sell that off. The rest of this plan never developed. Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. And then I guess I just stopped properly. There were some other aspects of this little exit strategy, but the goal was to move from phase to phase using the profit of each phase to then diversify into a new strategy and then sell that off, and then boom, 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 until eventually, oh my god, that would be about 19.72 Bitcoin, and let's see what that would be worth today. This is not really how, like this, no, okay. Let's see. 19.72 BTC to USD. Yeah, so now that'd be about $112,000. But back then that was not the case. 2017, let's see what that would be. Jesus. That doesn't really make sense. Anyway, it's a lot of money. So that was our grand scheme, our grand little plan. Let's see where the notes are here. Make sure that. All right, so none of this materialized really because on phase 1, which was the Xanax phase with all the Xanax coming to different drops, I decided that I was never going to go back to my house, my grandma's house. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I was not going home. And I don't know how I knew. I just knew. I could feel it in my bones that I just wasn't going to go home. I was going to go somewhere else. Little did I know. So the bars are coming to all these different drops. Jama and Mowdy and I got into an Uber, and we went to Lake Forest. More specifically, El Toro and Rockfield in Lake Forest. Before we got in that Uber, we were doing basically a dual solvent recrystallization of worked up meth I had made. Basically cleaning up the product. And we did this on a hillside. And we got into an Uber. We went to Lake Forest, and we realized, we need meth pipes so we can smoke. So we went to Up and Smoke, which is a smoke shop in Lake Forest, very, very close to El Toro and Rockfield. We bought 4 pipes for $10. And from there, we went to the Guitar Center at Lake Forest and Rockfield. Bought 2 new guitars. One was a cutaway acoustic electric with a sunburst pattern. That was Jama's. And then one was an acoustic bass guitar. And it's one of those things that really got Jama hired from, that drew me to him so much, was that early on when I was buying drugs from him, he had showed me a couple of songs. One of them was Atmosphere by Joy Division. He said, this is the song that I listened to when me and my girlfriend are out. I was like, what the fuck? You like Joy Division? And then the other things that he did, that moment I just said you're hired, was he played Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash and Space Oddity by David Bowie. And to this day, those covers of those songs are the best versions of those songs I've ever heard. And the reason why is because he meant them. As you know, Space Oddity is about an astronaut who gets lost in space or whatever. And can you hear me, Major Tom, kind of thing. He's off into the distance. In Folsom Prison Blues. But with Jama, these were not songs, these were him. I could feel especially with Space Oddity. He did Space Oddity. I was like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And I could see the genuinity and sincerity of that he was off in space now and he was never going home. And I still feel the chills now. It was so real. So fucking real, man. He meant it. He was in space and he was never going home. He had made that decision, I think, deeply in his soul. He's dead now. He died in 2022 in June of a meth overdose. Heart attack, meth overdose. He was found in Riverside, California, decomposing in the desert. He'd been missing for 3 weeks. And when he was found, he was a rotting corpse. And I always knew that fit him. I know it sounds fucked up, you guys, but that's exactly how I would have expected Jama. There was 2 ways that I was going to expect Jama was going to die. He was going to kill himself with fire, because he was always trying to light himself on fire. He was a very depressed person. Or he was going to get murdered or overdosed somewhere. And I don't know what that looked like. I never saw the body, obviously, but him decomposing in the desert was exactly what I thought he might die like. But he died in 2022. At this time, when he played me those songs, I never felt those songs so and to this day, they're the best versions of the songs I've ever heard. They far exceed the quality of David Bowie. Like, ridiculously exceed the quality of David Bowie. Just amazing versions of the songs. He played them on an acoustic guitar, and he meant every fucking word. And it was deep, and it cut. And so I hired him right away. It was like, you can have half of my money, half of my operation. We're doing everything together now. And that's all it took. We got to Guitar Center, we bought these guitars, and we sat around. Now, back in those days, it was a costume castle. Now I think it's like a Spirit Halloween or something like that. But there's Guitar Center and Spirit Halloween, or Costume Castle. We were around the side of the building, and we're playing guitar, hanging out. I don't know why we stopped that day, but I think it was just destiny. We stopped there, and we're playing the new guitars. I was starting to come down. I was starting to get tired. And I had this intention of going. There was a dumpster in front of us, like a little enclosed concrete dumpster that was about 10 meters out in front of us. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go over there and, like, smoke meth. Because we'd made really good meth that day. And you could tell. Just I hadn't even tried it, but I looked at it, and I could tell. It was just like, whoa. I never got to try it. Because before I could go to that dumpster, Maddie said, oh, I need to go meet my friends. They're over. Dude, let's try a little harder here, OBS. Sorry, guys. Had a connection drop out there. Everything is okay now, I think. And I had this plan. I was going to go to that. I was going to go to that dumpster and basically redose and get my energy back. And as soon as she turned the corner, a all-black SUV comes flying around that corner. Two guys jump out with AR-15s. Two officers. It turns out they were a gang unit, narcotics division guys, whatever. I don't know exactly. I think they were gang unit because narcotics showed up too. And we had, he called it his David Bowie knife because it was a Bowie knife. It's a huge knife, and he had used it to chop the mouthpiece off of a cigar, and it was sitting in front of us. Well, the police came. Hey, what are you guys doing here? And I was on the phone at the time. But they basically began probable cause for a search. And in that, I had what you call a boxed lab. And 80% of meth lab busts are a boxed lab, which means that it's either post or pre-cook, or post or pre-synthesis, to be more precise. I had this guitar case full of meth lab materials. I had new equipment and glassware that I bought from Target that day, actually. It was a Pyrex dish, some containers, things like that. But the Pyrex dish was done to do recrystallizations in it. And because there was a knife sitting out, they initiated a search. When I come back for episode 4, we're going to talk about what happened next. But we are at this point, we're surrounded by every police officer in Orange County. It seemed like there was a narcotics division. They showed up with Honda Civics and like Toyotas and just like random shit that you see, like any car that you see. And it's just like minivans and sedans and everything. And then they had every fucking cop car was there. The gang unit was there. Guys with rifles, guns, everything. And they're lining up fucking equipment on the hoods of the cars and chemicals and interrogating us. They separated us to different places, and we were hit with a meth lab. And I'm going to tell you guys how the arrest went down in episode 4. and what happened next, but a great little stopping point. Okay, Backbinders, episode 3. Book hack.